We're happy to see those of you who are here. And I guess I should say this at the end, though, but I'll say this at the end when more people are here. We are going to start our song service at this point, but before we do that, we are going to stand and have prayer. We're going to ask Sister Lisa to, is there a Roman mic somewhere? No? Any chair up here? There. We're going to ask Sister Lisa to pray for us.
Our God and most eternal Father, we thank you, Lord, for giving us another opportunity where we can come into your courts and to worship you in spirit and in truth. As we learn more about our health this afternoon, help that we may take the tips that are given and we may be able to use them in our homes, Lord, to better our health. May you bless all of us that are present here, all that are online, and may we continue to live a life that is pleasing in thy sight. And when you shall come in your clouds of glory, we pray, Lord, that we are saved in your eternal kingdom. This is our prayer in the wonderful name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister Lisa. Now, when you see me here, you know I am here. We're going to have, sit please, thank you. We're going to have our song service. I will sing to the honor of God. I'm not song leader, but it is so good to be able to sing praises to our God. Let me say welcome to all you who are here, those who are online. Good to have you too. And you can join us in singing our songs. I'm going to sing this evening in the hymnal is 511. I think it is number 70 in the singing youth, or the youth sings. And it is, I know whom I have believed. Admire those persons who come and stand here. It is extremely hot here. Anyway, our next hymn, I think, is 114 in the Advent Youth Sings, and 316 in the hymnal. Live out thy life within me. And we are about to begin officially, so I want my partner to join me up here. I was just conducting the sound service. So now we're going to begin officially. And while Sister Patricia is coming, I want to say to all of you who are here, again, a very hearty welcome. We're not having that many in here right now at the present time, and I don't know how many are online, but I know that this evening's program will be one that will be very informative, especially in this day and age. We know that many things happen in the night and on weekends, at all kinds of strange times when you can't get to a doctor. And sometimes, even when you can get to a doctor, it is not always convenient or financially or otherwise. And sometimes you need to know exactly what you can do to mitigate against a worsening situation. So this evening's program, we're trying to showcase what can be done at home or wherever you happen to be in an emergency, or if a case develops and it may not be something for the doctor either. It may be something that is fairly simple if you know how to handle it. So we're going to be showcasing situations like that and trying and letting those who are professional in the area give ideas of how we can handle these situations to ensure that they do not get worse or even to bring about remediation. Okay? And not only for ourselves, because whenever we learn something new, we learn it to share. So we learn so that we can help somebody else who may be in a similar situation. So I think this program, I will learn a lot, and there will be much to hear. So we're not going to prolong this. We welcome you again. Welcome to the online audience. Welcome to you who are in-house. Glad to have you here. All right. At this point in time, we have our first elder who is always present, well, most of the time, almost 100% present with us, and he is going to give us our opening prayer. After which, Sister Brooms will take over.
Good evening, all. Let's stand for prayer. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this Sabbath day. We want to thank you where we can come back into your courts again to worship you. We ask you now to be with us during this evening's proceedings as we discuss health and what you would want for us to be healthy and to be in good health. We ask you now to take full care of this evening's proceedings. We pray for Christ's sake. Amen.
Good evening, everyone, both here present and both online. Our opening hymn is number 11. Number 11.
When you sing,
Please say. Our scripture reading this evening is taken from Proverbs chapter 4, verses 20 to 23. And I will read in your hearing. My son, attend to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Let them not depart from your eyes. Keep them in the middle of your heart. For they are life to those that find them, and health to all their flesh. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Here ends the scripture reading for this evening. At this time, we will have an item of special music by our violinist.
hearty thank you to the two Graves youths, young ones, who played so well for us. Thank you so much for the special music. I want to invite now our panelists and moderator to come forward, and I will introduce them to our congregation and our audience and the rest of our viewers. Could they please come forward, please? All right, now we have a lone gentleman, and we will start with him since he's all by himself. And this is our elder for the Health Ministries Department, Brother Elder Richard Broom. He will be our moderator. Then we have three panelists, all ladies. Since Sister Shireen is next to him, we'll start with her. We have Sister Shireen Greaves. All three of them are Greaves too. Lord, thank you, Richard. Richard is the only lone one. We have Sister Shireen Greaves here, right? And she will raise her hand since nobody knows which one is Shireen, right? And she is the nurse in the group. And we have Sister Tamara Greaves. Well, we call her Dr. Greaves. And then we have Dr. Rachel Greaves. Now, Sister Shireen, she is a mother and a nurse. She has her degree in nursing. Currently, she is taking over my job, teaching. So she is a teacher at the current time, teaching her two sons. I don't know if the little one started anything yet, but I don't think so. And then we have Dr. Tamara, who works at QEH, who is a senior anesthetist. Those words get me. Anesthetist is word? Right, up there. And she also lectures and works at the UV. So, and then we have Sister Rachel, who works with our Ministry of Health here, and she has been here for a couple of years now, Sister Rachel. 3 years gone already. Well, anyway, that is the time when she's been here. She works with the Ministry of Health. So we have them in the hospital and out of the hospital and in the home. So we have them all around. So Brother Richard, thank you for moderating this panel. And Sister Patricia and I will go where we can see properly from below and listen to the questions and the responses. So over to you, Brother Richard.
Thank you so much, Sister Ameda. As was said, we have our esteemed panel. We have two doctors and a nurse. And so I'm sure we will get all the answers we want from this session. Of course, you know that from day to day, people are injured. And we all tend to suffer at one time or another from certain diseases like the flu, and even nowadays the big topic would be COVID. And of course, we have the NCDs, the non-communicable diseases. And so this evening, we're going to ask some questions that will help you to recognize when you can treat these issues on your own at home, or if you have to go to the doctor. That's the first thing I guess you need to decipher, whether you should treat at home or whether you should go to the doctor. And if you're going to treat at home, then what can you do? So we're going to have it in 3 segments. The first segment will be on first aid. The second will be on infectious issues. And the third one will be on non-communicable diseases. So we will start simple. So everybody's ready, so let's go. The first question then, I probably will give you 3 questions at one time. And the first one is, what is a bruise, and how should it be treated at home? what home treatment is there for repeat if it continues over and over in any particular area. What should you do? What is the right thing to do? And the last one, how should I treat a rash that results from taking a new medication? Now hold that over and let you do the first two. The first two, how do you treat a bruise? Who's going to take that one? Okay. Okay, Dr. Rachel Greaves will take that one.
Good afternoon, everyone. So
Good
what
afternoon.
is a bruise? A bruise is essentially when there can be a bit of blood that's under the surface of the skin. It hasn't been broken, so there's no active bleeding. So a bruise can normally tend to happen if the person would have fell, if something would have hit them or whatnot. At home, to treat a bruise, the best thing to do really is to apply a cold compress, an ice pack, or like a pack of frozen peas to the area for about 5 minutes, and then you can do that about twice a day.
Oh, wonderful. I noticed you said a pack of frozen peas. I think in the olden days it would say about a slice of meat somehow on the bruise. So we are totally vegetarian. Yes. Anyone else in the panel want to add anything to that, or should we go on to if you find that you're for some reason having this bruising going on repeatedly, what does that indicate, and then how would you treat that?
If you have repeated bruising going on, it will be best to go to your physician to get some blood work done. Yeah. It will be best to go to your physician to get some blood work done, because then that can mean that there may be something else going on that may not just be treated by using a cold compress or something like that. Okay.
That's sound and solid advice. Now, when it comes to having a rash, how should you view rashes? I know that some bruises can actually turn into a rash. How do you treat those types of things, the bruises that turn into a rash, and what kind of medication? And as a matter of fact, let me just break it in two. For the bruises that turn into rashes, what should you do? And secondly, if you are taking a new medication and you find that you've got a rash, then what should you do?
All right, so what I would say is, just going back a little bit to the bruise, I would say I think everybody gets bruises all the time, or at least at some point in time.
Yes.
I think one of the things you have to kind of figure out is if this is a bruise that came up spontaneously, or if it is because you fell down or you had some sort of trauma to the area. So if you had some sort of trauma to the area, then you have a reason for it, essentially. If you have somebody who's having repeated bruises and no trauma that they are aware of, then that may be a sign that they may have had, or they may have some issue with how the blood clots, like Rachel was saying, in which case then that becomes more serious and there's likely an underlying problem which probably needs addressing. But the everyday bruises, like sometimes you wake up, you see a black and blue, it goes away on its own. It really does not require, a bruise like that does not really require much. If it is a bruise, something trauma related, there's swelling, there's pain, as we said, put something cold on it, elevate it, that usually will suffice. But if it's a situation where you see you're having repeated bruises, you can't probably associate it with any sort of trauma, any sort of inciting agent, to put it that way, then that probably is going to be a little bit more concerning. There are some patients or some persons who have blood disorders where they are known their blood does not clot normally. So I'm sure most of us have heard of hemophiliacs. Usually it's a familial or inherited condition, and those patients those persons can get bruising, and they can get large, big bruises spontaneously, and they can be actually life-threatening. So situations like that, that's not what you will deal with at home. But like we said, the everyday bruise, the everyday you fall down, you bump something, doesn't probably require much more than what we described earlier. Answering the question about if you're taking medication and you develop a rash, well then, I don't know, y'all could tell me what y'all think is the first thing you should do. If you're taking medication and you get a rash, what would be the first thing you would do? Stop taking the medication. Sometimes it can be difficult to know, especially if it's a new medication, then it's probably kind of obvious that if you are taking something you've never taken before and you develop a rash that's all over the body, then common sense will tell you this must be the medication. So in a situation like that, stop the medication would be the first thing. Now, in that case, then you're probably thinking, or we're thinking you're having an allergic reaction to the medication. So we want you to stop the medication, but depending on why you're taking the medication, it may be a situation where you need to be taking the medication, whether it's an antibiotic for whatever reason, if you have an infection. So in a situation like that, you probably need to let your doctor know so that they can change the medication that you're taking. But in the setting at home, importantly, stop taking the medication, let your doctor know. If it's a rash, oftentimes it's an itchy rash, or you may notice like hives or wheals come up. Something that soothes the rash like that, people will use things like calamine lotion that helps with the itching. A lot of us probably have hydrocortisone cream. It has a steroid in it that will help with the itching and the swelling as well. But the thing to be aware of is if you're having a serious allergic reaction, that rash can progress to swelling of the eyes, throat feeling like it's closing up, and that now becomes a more serious situation, and that's not something to deal with at home because that can progress fairly rapidly. So as much as it may be an allergic reaction, it may just settle by itself with the hydrocortisone cream, calamine lotion, or an antihistamine, something like Histal. Most of us will have something like Histal at home, or something like Allegra, Zyrtec, any of those antihistamines, those Benadryl, all of those things will help the itching and the wheals that you have. But like I say, you need to monitor, because if at all you start having your throat feels like it's closing in, your eyes start swelling, and that becomes more serious, and that is when you need medical attention.
Thank you very much. We're going to move now to sprains and strains, so to speak. What is the best method of treating? For example, I remember the other day, I was somewhere, I think the bottom of the stairs, and I turned my ankle. And of course, you know what happened after that. It began to hurt. So what is the best way that what the best things that we can do to deal with a twisted ankle at home? A twisted ankle at home.
Okay, so to deal with a twisted ankle at home, the best thing to do is to try to elevate the leg to keep off of the leg. What you can do is that you can do cold compressions. There are some persons who will find that using a cold compression to the area may actually help to alleviate the pain. There are also some persons that find that if they use a warm compression, that this can be better than a cold compression. And there are some persons that find they can do a cold compression followed by a warm compression followed by a cold compression, again, just alternately, and that can tend to help alleviate the swelling as well as the pain. But the most important thing is to keep the leg elevated, keep off of the leg. And then also, if you have bandages at home, what you can do is that you can wrap the ankle to at least help to support it, especially if you have to move around.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting. I think I remember there's a particular method of wrapping the ankle. Is a figure eight. Yes, figure eight wrapping. Yes. So maybe sometime we can have you demonstrate for us how to do the figure eight wrapping of the ankle. All right, so we move on then to, sometimes you might be in the kitchen and you can get a burn, or even outside close to a fire. But perhaps first what I would probably want to find out is, the different levels of being burnt. You could have first degree, second degree, third degree. First of all, tell us which type of burn we are more likely to be able to deal with at home, and the types that we need to seek medical attention for urgently. And for the ones at home, what would you do?
Okay, so for a first degree burn, first degree burn, you could kind of more treat that at home. So at home, essentially, it will be to as soon as if you were burned by like some hot oil, or if possibly you would have walked by and the iron was hot and it was still on the ironing board, and your hand brushed the iron, or taking something hot from the oven and your arm would have brushed it, you immediately put it under cold running water to at least help to stop the reaction from happening.
I believe you're going to have a... Okay, yes. That's Dr. Greaves, Dr. Tamara Greaves, yes?
I guess this is the second part. So I think when we talk about burns, everybody just thoughts about, what we talk about is the depth of the burn. So burns that are superficial, I think, again, most of us will get them at home, whether it be in the kitchen, like Rachel was describing. And really what happens is just the top layer of the skin is gone. Now with those types of burns, the skin has a lot of nerve endings in it, so you're going to have, of course, if you irritate that or you lose that top layer of skin, one way you can tell is that it is painful. So of course, you know, if you get burnt oil or anything like that, it's painful. The deeper the burn is, we can then talk about second degree, third degree, or people talk about full thickness, partial thickness. It's just how deep the burn is. But importantly is if you have a burn and now all you see is white, or it is just white and it is not painful, that tends to be a more full thickness or a more severe burn. So you might think that having no pain is a good sign, not necessarily in a case like that, all right? So when you have a deeper burn, that is something that you should seek medical attention for. I would say, like Rachel described what we would do for a burn at home, put it under the cold water. I don't know if anybody has ever, like people say if you put toothpaste on it, on those superficial burns, it has a calming effect or a cooling effect on it. Again, you can put things like calamine lotion and so on the bruise, and we would tend to say if you have if you develop like a water bump or a blister, we oftentimes would leave it, don't, because it's oftentimes once you burst it, you're more at risk for infection. So leave it and let it burst on its own. You can wrap it if you need to wrap it as well. When you need to seek medical attention, children. If children have a burn, as much as it may be small, it may seem insignificant to you, when children get burnt, those are the times you should take them to the hospital. Of course, you would say if it's a big burn, those are things then when, of course, you would want to go to the hospital. But children with burns, that's not something to play with. And it also depends on where the burn is. When you have a burn, especially if it's a deeper burn and it involves areas that if it heals, it could heal with like a contracture. So meaning your hands, feet, yeah, anywhere you have a crease, essentially. Your face, of course, is another area. Those are things that you would want to seek medical attention for. And of course, because of your face, just from a cosmetic point of view, obviously. The bigger a burn is, of course, you're losing the top layer of skin. So you know, if you lose the top layer of skin, the skin is a protective barrier. It prevents things from getting in. So one, you're at risk for infection, and then two, the skin becomes weepy and you can lose a lot of fluid that way. So people who have burns, especially larger burns, can become dehydrated very quickly. So anybody that has a large burn, or anybody who gets a burn and like a flame burn or a heat burn in an enclosed space, they need medical attention because just the heat from the smoke that you inhale can damage the airways. So the conditions under which you get the burn is also important. So when we're talking about somebody in like a house fire, they were in there for a little while, those people need to go to the hospital. The things you're treating at home, like we said, are going to be you're in the kitchen, oil splash on you, maybe some hot water went on you, but again, depending on where the burn is, like I said, the hands, the face, those are things to seek medical attention for. The other thing I would say about a burn is chemical burns too can sometimes be deceiving, and sometimes they can be more extensive than you think. So like an acid burn, anything like that is something that you should have medical attention for. And electrical burns. Electrical burns, of course, that is another one that we do not oftentimes see the damage on the outside because the burn cause is an electrical current that is passing through the body. So any electrical burn, that is not something to deal with at home. That needs medical attention. Yes, I see, Sister May. Well, you will know if you had an electrical burn. Meaning, so like if, so not, so yes. So when, and usually it has to be something from a fairly high voltage. I don't want to get outside. But meaning if you, so if you had a situation where, for example, you had maybe, sometimes you like would get a shock from a, we're not talking about that. We're talking about if you were to deal with some maybe high voltage piece of equipment and you got a burn or you got a shock from that, or you hear sometimes about people picking something, fruit, and it touches a high temperature. That kind of burn, that's what we're talking about. But in your house, yes, if you get, I know sometimes that you might be standing up in water and you get a little tingle. Not that we're describing, but if you have essentially exposed to a large voltage or current, that becomes more dangerous. Oh, okay. I was saying I heard the toothpaste works. I don't know, but the flour is one. The other thing that helps those burns and so on to heal fast is if you put something like vitamin E or something oil on them when they're healing, they do tend to heal faster as well. Vitamin E? Yeah. Sometimes you can even just take the capsule and burst it and put it on the area.
I recently had to deal with one of my youngest son. He had a burn. He got splashed from some hot oil on his chest, right? And as you said, the water. So as soon as he got burned, I said him go into the shower. So he went into the shower under, get that running water so that you stop the actual burn from happening, like Rachel was saying, Dr. Rachel. And of course, his burns, it was pretty large, maybe about 2 burns, maybe about 3 inches or so, right? And so the skin, it did bubble up and the skin started coming off. So something that I found was useful because, once you have that exposure, you want to have some kind of antibiotic, especially with children. I use the antibiotic cream. So antibiotic cream is helpful to prevent infection. But I did have to cover it, and of course I contacted his pediatrician, right? Because with children, you want to make sure that they don't, things don't go, worse than it is, right? So, and then there are some dressings that I used, but most times you would get those dressings if you go to a medical facility, something that has some kind of lubrication, because if you have a dressing on the burn, if it's a burn that requires a dressing, then you would need some kind of lubrication as well, so that the dressing doesn't stick to it, because every time you remove the dressing, you're going to cause damage to the burn, yes? So as Tamara said, the vitamin E, things like that will lubricate, and there's sulfur, something that is sulfur-based, so you have some over-the-counter creams as well that you can purchase for the burns.
That brings me to... Yes, you want a question? Yes. Yes, Sister Ahmed is saying, I don't know if the microphones would have picked you up, but you're saying it is vital to put running water on the burns, so to speak. Oh, that's the question, right?
So, right, it is just you're trying to prevent, I guess you're trying to get rid of you want to get rid of whatever the agent is. Now, using the water, that's fine for things like we said, if you got like some oil or something like that at home. There are other situations, of course, if it's a burn where if the person is actively on fire, meaning like if it's a flame burn, they have clothes and that sort of stuff, then of course you need to try to extinguish the fire first before you can clearly apply any sort of aid or whatever to the person. So sometimes you will see people try to roll them or put something on to try to extinguish the fire first. And you need to remove whatever clothes they have on, because if you leave them in those clothes, then the burn can get worse as well.
That brings me.
So in those situations, you may not have the facility to put water on them. Obviously, you may just. In that case, no, I would not. Yeah. We're talking about the small superficial burns really at home.
Yeah. But that brings me to the question that was bobbling around in my mind, so to speak. I think I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, years ago, when you had a superficial burn, so to speak, they would put like Vaseline on it, but then they said, no, that's not right. That the Vaseline, or, sorry, I should say petroleum jelly, I shouldn't say, petroleum jelly. That was not the best thing to put on it. That water is actually better than the oil-based petroleum jelly. And you're trying, first of all, to get the heat out of the area, and the petroleum jelly probably may not actually be helping, but hampering the healing process. Is that true?
So right, you would use, so you would avoid putting that on initially. Like what Sharina was saying is, like after like you put the water or whatever on the burn, then we would cover it oftentimes with, there's something called sulfur salazine, that you put on. It's almost like it's kind of like an occlusive dressing kind of that you put on the area. One, it is to try to help. It has some antibiotic properties as well, but it also covers the area. But we don't advise using Vaseline or petroleum jelly as you described it.
All right, thank you so very much. So we can now look at some cuts. Of course, you know there are all types of different cuts. What type of cuts are safe to be treated by yourself at home? And opposed to that, when should you seek medical attention if you have a cut? Yes, Dr. Tamara, or Dr. Rachel. Dr. Rachel, yes, you go.
All right, so if the cut is superficial,
yes,
you can treat the superficial cut at home. What you have to do is that you have to, once the cut is actually bleeding, you have to try to clean the cut as much as possible, get out any debris or whatnot. If the person would have fell on mud, on gravel, or anything like that, you try to get out as much debris as possible. You have to look at the depth of the cut. Yes. If the cut is superficial, you can just wash it out with some water. Alcohol is a bit painful, especially for children. You could just use some hydrogen peroxide. That won't be as painful, and that will at least help to clean the area. And then you can probably put on an antibiotic ointment, and you can dress it or you can leave it open. In children, it's best to cover it because children are going to be out doing a lot of activities the following day or like a few hours afterwards. If the cut is actually a bit deep, where you can see it's not just more superficial, you can actually see more parts, like you can see white or whatnot, that's the best time that you should possibly go to a medical facility. That's where the person may actually need to get the area, the cut glued, or actually get it sutured together.
Well, thank you very much. I don't want to bring tears to the school, but I know of a certain person, once you have a cut, the alcohol is coming. And I think they do it with pleasure as well. So when the cut is deep and we would tend to know that you can see it's opening up. That's when you need to get it stuck back together or sutured.
Depending on
so
where
that
it
means,
is.
right,
Yeah.
that we have to come to you then.
You have to go to a medical facility, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's then look, because of time, we are going to look at poison substances. I know the older folk would tell you about drinking milk and so on and so forth, but I do know, and there's some people would tell you also to put your fingers down the person's throat and make them, and so on. But of course, I think I know that for some substances, to make them bring it back up may cause more damage and so on. So the question then, what should you do when you suspect someone has ingested a poisonous substance? How do you know when you can treat it at home or when you have to go seek medical attention, should you first try to decipher or figure out what the poisonous substance is, and then according to what the substance is, then you have to decide what you're going to do? Is that an important point to know what the substance is at first? And that question goes to any of you.
So I would say yes. Sometimes you may not know, depending on the situation, you may not know what the substance is the patient or the person may have ingested. But if you do know, then clearly I think that is a situation. Like if you're taking them for medical attention, you should try to take whatever it is you suspect or you know that the person may have ingested. Poisoning, I don't really think is something to treat at home, because they are, depending on what it is, there are things that you may seem fine initially, but then there can be consequences or deterioration down the road. So I think anybody who you think has ingested or you know has ingested a poisonous substance, I think that is the time to seek medical attention. What I will say is, inducing vomiting, I know that, but the point you made is a valid point, because there are things that, some substances that may be irritant or corrosive. So you can imagine if you drink something that is irritant and it goes down, say your esophagus and it goes on, it can be irritating and cause damage on the way down. If you try to induce vomiting and it comes back up, then you are doing the same thing on the way back up. So that is one of the things that we would suggest you avoid. I know people talk about taking things like activated charcoal and so on. I would not get into those things. If you think somebody has ingested a poisonous substance, that is the person to get medical attention for that person. I know you always read on the containers, they say, call the Poison Control Center. I will be very honest. I don't know what that translates to for us here. I think you need to seek medical attention for that person.
And we all agree.
No, take them from yes.
So
of course, I was just going to say, if it's a situation where the person is, for example, unconscious, they may need immediate attention at home, whether it be in a situation like a CPR situation, depending on how severe it is. But you will do that, calling the ambulance, calling whatever, and getting help and trying to get the person to medical attention would be the best thing.
So since we as lay people wouldn't know which substances will cause trouble coming back up if you would try to induce vomiting, and we don't know if milk is going to help, and we don't know if charcoal is going to help, activated charcoal is going to help, the best thing, as you said, to do is to seek medical attention. Don't try to play doctor when it comes to poison. So once it comes to poison, seek medical attention. Now, the next one may fall into that, well, I shouldn't say that. We need to know what to do. If perhaps we are at the beach or we're at the pool, someone begins to get themselves into difficulties and they're drowning, what can we do until we get medical attention at the scene? What can we do to a person who, as to put it in local parlance, they drown? Maybe that's not the best way of putting it. They are drowning.
Well, if they're drowned,
I don't
I think it's too late.
They are in the process of
yes, near drowning. We call it near drowning. So if you had to help someone, assist someone who, for some reason, you suspect that they would have ingested or swallowed, or it went down, water went in, of course, you should always seek medical attention, carry the person, or call the ambulance, whichever is faster. That person, if the person is unconscious, because you have a lot of levels of near drowning, if the person is unconscious, you have to, of course, check to see if that person would need CPR, if that person has a pulse, if they are breathing, that kind of thing. In the meantime, so any person who's around who may know what to do in terms of CPR, you should call for assistance. If you do not know yourself how to do CPR, then you need to have assistance. If the person is awake, they may be coughing. They will have certain signs that there's trouble. They had some water, probably went down into their respiratory into their lungs or so, then you would definitely need to seek attention. Putting that person in what we call a recovery position, turn them on their left side, putting them to lie down so that until you get help. I don't know if you want to add anything else in terms of drowning, but that near drowning is a very serious condition. It's going to affect your breathing, and it can progress even worse. And you may have freshwater drowning and saltwater. They are treated, differently. So that person needs to get to a medical facility.
Well, I have a follow-up question in terms of the CPR. I know that you mentioned putting the person on the left side. I guess you're trying to perhaps drain the fluid up the lungs, perhaps, maybe. I'm not sure. But then I was told also, I heard that there's a position you can put them in with their heads, with the knees, too close to the knees or something like that. And my question is, which is the best thing to do? Because then there's some people that will tell you about mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and the pumping and so on and so forth. But in this day and age, I don't know how many people will want to risk doing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation because you don't really know what's going to happen afterwards to yourself. So what's the best thing to do in terms of all those different...
You would have, as I said, if you check the person, you would check to see if the person is breathing, if they have a pulse, because you want to know if that person is alive, or so on. They may be unconscious and can have a pulse, or they may be unconscious and not breathing, don't have a pulse. In most instances, in the care, when you're caring for someone, you're doing CPR outside, they just tell you in most instances, they tell you just do the compressions, right? And the mouth-to-mouth, they will get advanced care as you call the ambulance. In the meantime, so you're not going to wait until you're finished to call the ambulance. You get that call in one time while you help that person. So somebody around you call for help, get somebody to help assist you. But it's not really advised to do mouth-to-mouth, the breathing part, right? In most cases, you just do the chest compressions. Persons who know how to do it can do that until they are able to get advanced care.
Okay. Yeah.
Something I was going to say is that one of the things about when you have patients who are near drowning victims, so depending on the situation, as Shireen pointed out, they may be unconscious for different reasons. And one of the things you have to remember, some people, it could be a situation where the person was diving, was surfing, whatever, and they hit their head. They may have a spinal cord injury, and that is what was the inciting agent. So one of the things, so of course, clearly you have to remove them from the water, of course, if you find somebody in the water. But you're not going to be trying to move somebody like that too much until you get help that you can move them appropriately. But as I said, like you have somebody like that lying down, you want to check to make sure, or to see if that is somebody, exactly what Shireen said, are they breathing, do they have a pulse, etc. And then you would go to do the CPR. So the point is, CPR is not something that you need to be a medical professional to do. Anybody and everybody realistically, ideally, should know basic CPR. And so this is a little plug for learning or doing CPR, meaning any man on the street can save somebody's life with CPR. And so that's why there are courses that they do all the time, like Heart and Stroke Foundation will do these courses. And I would actually say, especially for parents who have children, it is a good thing to learn how to do, because you never know, hopefully you will never need to know what to do, but you should always, it is a good thing to learn how to do. And of course, there are some things about it that are different for children, babies, etc. But the whole point is, you don't need to be a doctor, a nurse, you don't need to have medical training to be able to do CPR. And so in that situation, as I say, people who have been trained, they will come, they will be able to assess the patient and decide whether or not that patient, like Shireen says, needs chest compressions, etc., whatever the case may be, until you can get help for the patient to come and move the patient. And so that is an important thing with anytime you have somebody who is injured or who is we try not, especially if they're unconscious or they're not moving, try not to move them too much because you do not know what injuries they have. And sometimes in trying to help or trying to, you think you're helping, it can worsen the injury, especially patients who may have a spinal cord injury or a broken neck, essentially. So we try not to move them too much. Of course, if there is danger in leaving the person where they are, then of course we have to move them. But once you're in a situation where the patient is not in imminent danger, we try not to move them or to lift them up or until you know or until you get more help arriving on the scene.
Okay, so the question is, as Sister Mid is saying, when we watch television and we see people administering CPR, we sometimes see water like gushing out the person's mouth. Is that what really happens? That's the question.
So when people drown, they will ingest some water. They will have some water that goes into the lungs. As dramatic as what we see on TV, not really. But you clearly would have ingested some water, or they would have some water. What we said they would have aspirated. I have never seen anything that dramatic, but I suppose it's possible, but generally no. And you're not going to get water, you may have, just flying out like that, but I think that's special effects.
Not gushing out of the mouth. Okay, so let's follow on now with some dental health. And the first question is, it is easy but tricky in that some people will give you different answers. How often, when you're dealing with your teeth, how often should I brush my teeth?
Okay, so you should at least brush your teeth twice a day.
At least
twice a day. But honestly,
gold standard.
But honestly, after each meal, the best option is really to brush your teeth to at least get rid of all the different food particles or debris that can be in there, which can actually help to build up cavities or whatnot inside of your mouth. So it's really best to brush your teeth with a fluoride toothpaste at least after each meal.
After each meal. So that's the gold standard.
And then also, if you like to use mouthwash, don't use mouthwash directly after brushing your teeth because that can actually aid in the teeth becoming weaker as well. So you should wait for at least 30 minutes or so to use the mouthwash after brushing your teeth.
Does that affect the enamel of the teeth?
Yeah.
Okay. Peroxide.
So you can use peroxide, but try not to make it a habit to use peroxide. So for instance, if there are some persons who may be more prone to having like abscesses or whatnot, dental abscesses, if you have a lot of dentists will recommend a water pick, which essentially is just you fill it with water and it just, instead of flossing, the water actually goes in between your teeth to help to remove any of the food particles or whatnot. If you add, some dentists will actually recommend to put a little bit of peroxide in there once you're prone to dental abscesses, just once a month or so, every 2 weeks to once a month to actually help to aid in that with that.
Well, you kind of actually answered the second part for this section, and that was to ask what was the significance of flossing. But if you want to, you could just brush that up since you've already.
Flossing is really to get rid of any debris, any food particles, anything that may be there still in your mouth that you can't actually get with the toothbrush.
Okay, so the final question in this section would be, what home remedy is there for toothaches? What can we do?
The normal thing is that everyone normally uses is clove oil. Everyone just has clove oil. Yeah, so you just put a little bit of clove oil on a piece of paper. You can put it in the mouth or you can put it next to the mouth.
Thank you so very much. Now we move to the issue at hand. Well, nowadays we have COVID-19. And what are the symptoms of the COVID-19? And are they similar to the common cold? And can you differentiate between the COVID-19 and the common cold?
Okay, so it honestly depends on which variant of COVID-19 may be common.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So As everyone would have known with the different symptoms, it will be a non-productive constant cough. You may have fever, possibly may have sore throat, you may have chills. Some persons, they may have vomiting, you may have diarrhea as well, but it really depends on which variant. That is with COVID-19. With the common cold, you can have a cough, it can be productive. Most of the times it's not necessarily, it can be not, it usually will be non-productive. So with COVID and the common cold, a lot of the symptoms tend to overlap.
Okay. So if, heavens forbid, anyone catches the COVID-19, what are some of the things that they can do at home to help alleviate the symptoms they're experiencing?
Okay, so as Rachel was saying, a lot of the symptoms are similar, and the aim of treating COVID, you want to, of course, before I say that, is it very important to begin any kind of treatment early, so early treatment. So if you know that you have it, or you know for sure you've been exposed to it, all right, don't wait until, you start, you're in need of hospital care. It's very, very important to start treatment early. And some of the home remedies that you can use, because you have different severities, and you have some persons, as you know, a lot of persons can isolate at home and just use, some home remedies and over-the-counter drugs. So, of course, one of the symptoms you may feel is tired, you may feel fatigue. So resting is important, all right? So you rest when you feel tired. Having a lot of fluids, drinking a lot of fluids is important. Some persons experience body pain, some persons get headaches. You have a lot of different symptoms that go along with it. So if you need some pain relievers, something like paracetamol, something that would relieve the pain and the headaches, fever, and so on. Something else that you can do is steam inhalation. This is something that you can do at home as well. You boil some water and you can add some peppermint oil, eucalyptus oil, whatever you have in your home, menthol crystals. Those are some things that would help to alleviate, and if you have congestion. The steam inhalation is very important. Some persons believe some of the properties in eucalyptus oil and peppermint oil and some of these things can also help with to decrease the replication of the virus, so the virus would not continue to replicate. What else? Vitamins. Your having your vitamins on board, your vitamin C, your vitamin D, zinc, those things are important. Things like if you have lemons or limes, some lemon water, not using the sugar, just some lemon water. You squeeze a lemon in some water. You can use it warm or room temperature. All right. And then there are some foods that you can find in your kitchen or in your garden, if you have a little kitchen garden, that are really good in alleviating some of these viruses and strengthening your immune system. Because the aim, you want to strengthen your immune system so that your body can fight the virus. All right. So things like turmeric. There's some persons you have a lot of recipes going around. A lot of persons have little recipes that they make. We have a recipe that we make at home using turmeric, garlic, onions, cayenne pepper, peppermint oil, eucalyptus oil, lemon, ginger. Of course, your vitamin C powder. Some persons add things like pawpaw leaves, blackstrap molasses. There are a lot of, and whatever you have, any combination, it helps, because these foods are known to be very good for boosting your immune system. Some of them even have properties that are antibiotic, and some believe antiviral as well. And so something like this, persons have attested to getting relief from using foods like that. All right, so those are some simple things that you can do at home. Something like what we call a contrast shower. where you would do hot and cold, or if you have a bath, right? Hot and cold, so you start with warm, using warm water, as warm as you can use it. You go in under the shower with the hot water, you stay about a minute, then you turn it to cold, you use the cold water. And what that basically does is improving your circulation, all right? So that as you use your body is fighting this condition, and you're using your natural remedies, whatever you're using at home, it helps with the circulation, it helps with your circulation to carry those nutrients around your body and to improve the condition. It helps to strengthen your immune cells, all right, those white blood cells. I have a list, I'm sure that I cannot exhaust this list. I have a list of things here. Using sunlight is important, getting your sunshine. So you could literally like sunbathe, expose your arms, you wear something that's sleeveless, you wear something that will expose your arms, your legs, your face, and so on. You go out in the sun, whether you're taking a walk or just sunbathing. The vitamin D and the sunlight is very, very good. What else we can use? Persons may experience, as it was said, you may have some strains of the virus, you get vomiting and diarrhea. So of course your rehydration and so on is important. And if you find that you need relief, then that's the point when you would need to seek. If you find that the person is dehydrated, or if you're caring for someone, then of course you may need to go and have some rehydration if the vomiting and diarrhea does not subside. Home remedies, cough syrup. There's a cough syrup that I recently learned how to make, where you use honey and onion. So you have an onion, you cut up the onion, and you have put it in a glass bottle, and you layer the onion, a little honey, onion, honey, and you lay it like that until either your onion is finished or your jar is full, and you leave that for 24 hours, and it becomes the onion, the juice from the onion comes out into the honey. It becomes a liquid, and you strain the onion. You take out the onion, and that especially for children who may not be able to use the strong tasting medications, that's something that's easy for them to use. Just the honey with the onion in it, right? And then simple things like what you normally do if you have a little congestion. You might rub some Vicks on yourself, and that kind of thing. Those things are easy to do. And there's one thing that I want to say, because there's a lot of fear surrounding COVID, because we have seen what has happened around the world. We look at television and we worry and we stress about, suppose I get it. One thing that I should say is also important is putting your trust in God and not getting anxious about it, all right? Anxiety and fear is very real. Stress and anxiety can actually kill you, as you would know. And so a lot of the times people get very fearful, they get scared, all right? And that can actually cause them to get even worse than they would have been, right? So putting your trust in God, all of those things are important. I'm sure I have not exhausted this list.
Thank you.
You can add something.
Thank you so very much. A quick question now. Many of us suffer from sinuses. What can we do to help those persons? And is there a cure for sinuses that give so much trouble?
All right, well, what I would say about sinus issues, well, of course, is usually something that triggers people who have sinus issues, all right? So whatever you're allergic to, some persons, it may be some food, it can be the dust, it can be pollen, different things will trigger your sinus issues. So it's important to know what is the trigger for you, what is your trigger, and so you want to avoid the trigger, right? So if it is certain foods, you need to avoid. Some persons might be dairy. Some people may not realize sometimes dairy can cause a lot of sinus issues, a lot of allergy problems, milk and cheese and so on. It might be pollen. So if you have flowers and so on, or trees with flowers that are blooming. I know certain trees around certain times of the year. In Barbados, some schools complain that children who have sinus issues, when the tree is blossoming, then you have a lot of children coming down with sinus problems and, those kind of issues. So it's important to know what your trigger is so that you can avoid that. And of course, the same kind of things that you would use in terms of decongestions. And then persons who have sinus issues, they probably would have sought medical attention for it. You may have your medication that you use. Some persons have nasal sprays. You may have, whether your eyes or some persons also have problems with the same sinuses. They may have also other symptoms with it, rubbing their eyes and so on. So you would have maybe your own medication that you would normally use. Also, steam inhalation for sinus issues. It also helps with the helping that mucus to come down to clear your sinuses. And over-the-counter, a lot of over-the-counter medications you may have, decongestions, so things that would help to relieve Histal. There's some things like Histal. There's some antihistamines and so on. Depending on the severity, then you would use certain things. And of course, the overall thing is you try as much as possible to follow the laws of health in terms of your nutrition, in terms of, your rest. Because if you're not getting rest like I am, you could hear my throat and so on. If you're not getting enough rest, then you would succumb to these issues a lot quicker than if your immune system was strong and if you didn't have these issues. So having a healthy lifestyle is important. And also, there are other things that we mentioned that could be used.
Thank you so very much. Non-communicable diseases. Is it true that strokes and heart attack have the same origin?
Very similar. So basically, somebody who has a stroke, somebody who has a heart attack, really both of them, it is a problem with blood supply problem, whether it be stroke is to the brain, and of course a heart attack is to the heart. So it really has to do with blocked arteries. However, strokes can be, you can have a stroke that is because of a blocked artery going to the brain, or it can be because of a bleed in the brain. Either one of those can be a stroke. But yes, the underlying cause, yes, is fairly similar in terms of there being, whether it be blocked arteries from atherosclerosis, whatever the case may be.
Okay, now that is cleared up, what can you do to treat these very annoying occurrences?
So if you mean if somebody is having a stroke or a heart attack?
Yes.
Well, I would say the first thing to kind of be aware of is how would you know if somebody is having a stroke or a heart attack. So like I would say, if I were to ask people, how would you know if somebody was having a stroke? I think most of us can kind of...
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, so if you look at their face, what happens to the face? The face may be what?
Slumped to the side.
The face may be twisted.
Slurred
so
speech.
you can. So if you want, it may not be obvious that the face is twisted. What can you ask them to do? Smile or show you their teeth, and then you would tend to realize you see that, and you're looking for symmetry. You may realize that one side looks like it is drooping or whatever the case may be. Okay, so that's one thing. So their face.
Slurred speech.
Slurred speech, you may ask them, yes, when they talk, their speech may be slurred, or it may be what? They may just not be making sense. They may be talking, but what they're saying does not make sense, yes, What else? I saw Lisa doing something. Okay, so the arms, you ask them to raise their arms, for example, above the head, and what might you see?
Can't get it done. One side.
So they may not be able to raise the hand, or you may realize that one is weaker than the other. When they raise one, drops down, or they may not be moving a side or an arm. Okay, and when you see signs like that, those are things that will make you think this person may be having a stroke. And of course, when somebody is having a stroke, when somebody is having a heart attack, the faster you get them to medical attention, the better. Because what you need or what you want is that you need to get, what the signs are really telling you that blood is not getting to a part of the body. So what you really need is to get blood supply back to that part of the body. So when it's like a heart attack, people have this thing that people say time is muscle, meaning the longer you wait to get them to medical attention to reestablish blood supply, the more likely it is that they may have permanent damage or they may have more damage than you would otherwise have. So we are talking about a stroke now, so somebody like that, that is somebody definitely you need to try to get to medical attention. So I think the important thing is to identify one, that they're having a problem. Now, you can also have something as subtle as, so sometimes, I don't know if you've ever heard of, like somebody when say they went blind for like a minute or blind for like a second. That is a sign, that can be a sign of a stroke, or it can be like a herald sign to somebody getting a stroke. So sometimes even something as, I don't want to say as subtle, because it's not subtle to lose your vision or to just go blind like that for, but that, they call it, there's a word name for it, amaurosis fugax. Doesn't matter what they call it, but the point is, it is a situation where that may also be like a herald sign of something happening. Now, when we have a stroke, you know, people also talk about a mini stroke. What's a mini stroke? Everybody, what they say a mini stroke is? A TIA? You have ever heard the term? A TIA just means that somebody may have, like, the symptoms we've just spoken about, but they are very short-lived. So the person may say, oh, they can move this hand, or this hand was weaker, and then within about an hour, or maybe even half an hour, they go back to normal. Again, that is a situation where that people may have some of those in succession, and then they may have a bigger stroke. So again, even though you may have a situation where what people call it is a mini stroke, again, it is telling you that there is a problem with the blood supply going to the brain. So again, it is something to seek medical attention for. As far as the heart attack is concerned, okay. Mm-hmm. Right, all right, so I can tell you, we'll talk about the heart attack one first, and then we can talk. So when now is a heart attack, now we're talking about what are the signs, or what will people complain of when they're having a heart attack?
Pain.
Chest pain. Okay, so they may have pain too in that left arm. So the pain oftentimes is where, when we say chest pain, because you know, a lot of people talk about the stomach, and people's stomach extends from the neck down to their feet. So when we say chest pain, we're talking more, oftentimes they complain of a pain right here in the center of the chest. It may be on the left side, and oftentimes they describe it as almost like they feel like somebody's sitting on the chest, or a crushing type of chest pain. Not that it cannot be otherwise, but that's fairly commonly how people will describe it. So yes, pain is one, and the pain may be going in the left hand or up the left jaw. All right? Anything else? Not necessarily. So Shireen said they may be nauseous, or they may vomit. So nausea, vomiting, then some people may sweat profusely. And the thing is, sometimes you can miss these things because you may not have, you know, if you're looking for all of the signs, everybody will not necessarily have all of the signs. And I would say particularly women and diabetics often present more atypically. So sometimes all women, or even diabetics, all they may say is, my stomach don't feel, again, the stomach. My stomach don't feel good. And they may say they have this pain in the stomach, they feel nauseous, and that may be all they have. So, yeah, gas, common thing. So everything may not be typical. Some people may have their heart racing. So all of those are things that may clue you in that something is wrong. But especially if you have a pain and it is not settling, that is something, when I say pain, chest pain, the kind of pain, and it is not settling, that is something that you need to seek medical attention for. And again, yes, sister. So a thrombosis is referring to a blood clot. You can have a blood clot anywhere. So you can have a blood clot, we say, in a blood vessel going to the brain, a blood vessel in the heart, or it can be in the legs, it can be one in the lungs, when we talk about pulmonary embolism. So in these cases, oftentimes what happens is that you have plaque within the arteries, and it may be that have plaque ruptures, or you have total occlusion, and that's where you get pain. Things you can do if you suspect, for example, somebody's having a heart attack, or people would say give them aspirin, all right? The aspirin is to thin the blood, and usually you will need a bigger dose of aspirin than what you normally give, but at home, generally what you will have at home is the normal, what people say baby aspirin. So you can give them that while you're trying to get them to medical attention. But the point is you need to get them to medical attention to try to reestablish circulation to whatever part of the body is, whether it's the brain or the heart, because anything that does not get blood supply will eventually die. So those are the things. So I would say the important things are the important things to know what to look out for to suspect that somebody is having a stroke or a heart attack. But just remember, everybody will not have all of the typical signs. People may not have a stroke and may have the whole body. Some people may just say this side feels numb. That may be all they say. The body, it feels numb. Some people may just start talking idle or be confused. That may be all they have, moving all of their limbs. So just being aware of how it can present helps you to get help faster, which is what we ultimately need.
Well, thank you very much. I guess we can move on to the question from the floor. What about cayenne pepper? Putting it on your tongue, will that alleviate the...
I cannot say that I have heard that before. I'm not saying it, but I have never heard of that before. One of the things too that, so there are some people who may be known to have what we call angina, which is when they get this pain off and on. And those patients may have at home, they may have these tablets that they have to put under the tongue, or spray something to spray under the tongue. If it is somebody like that who is known to have issues with the heart and they have that medication at home, and now you think they are having a heart attack, then it is useful to put one under the tongue or spray the medication, yes, called GTN spray, or the tablet under the tongue as well. But again, that would be if somebody has a history of that and has that medication at home.
Okay, time is going. There are some questions on now blood pressure. We all would have heard of people who suffer from high blood pressure, but there's also such a thing as low blood pressure. Would you like to tell us the differences, what caused them, and so on? Anyone?
All right. So yes, everybody generally will talk about high blood pressure. And Sister Maida this morning spoke a little bit about what, in terms of knowing what your blood pressures are. Everybody talks about 120, 80, and they have become more and more strict, I would say, in the guidelines, and they would say over that they start to call it pre-hypertension. What I would generally say is that there are people who live or run lower blood pressures, meaning there are some people who, if I check the blood pressure now, their blood pressure may be 90 on 50 or 90 on 60, and for them, that is normal. Part of what makes you concerned is if somebody is symptomatic of it. So if your blood pressures are on the lower end like that, but you're dizzy, you feel lightheaded, you feel like you're going to faint, that is a problem. But there are other people who walk about normally with a blood pressure of 90 systolic. That does not require any treatment, all right? There are other people who may be accustomed to having a higher blood pressure, and so when their blood pressure is in that range, then they may be symptomatic of it. So I would say what becomes important is whether or not the person is symptomatic of it, meaning do you feel lightheaded, do you feel dizzy, you feel like you're going to faint, then that is a problem. The other thing, high blood pressure, one of the dangerous things about high blood pressure is that unless it is very high, oftentimes there are no symptoms. So this thing that we have like to say that I know when my pressure is high because my head just starts to feel funny. You cannot wait to say my head feeling funny to know my pressure is high. You need a machine. You need to check it to know whether it is high or not. You can't go, like, you know how with the ad with HIV, they say you can't tell by looking? Same thing with hypertension. That's why they say hypertension is a silent killer, because you can be walking about with hypertension for years, and that untreated hypertension is causing damage to your organs and you are not aware. So waiting until your head start hurting you, or waiting until you start feeling like you're going to pass out, is not a good idea.
Now, I noticed you said that some people it's almost normal for them to have a lower kind of blood pressure, but just to make sure that nobody leaves here or goes away from this service thinking that the opposite can also be true, that you can have an elevated blood pressure which is normal to you, or should I say, is that even possible to have for anyone in particular a normal pressure, but it tends to be higher than the usual blood pressure?
So if you've been walking about with a high blood pressure for a long time, you may find that if you've been walking out with a blood pressure of 180 or 90 for the last few years, and I see you now, and I give you some medication, I drop your blood pressure to 120 or 80, you will probably feel unwell.
Okay.
So, but that is not to say that your blood pressure should be 180 or 90. What it means is that's why they would probably need to give you medication or to treat it, and gradually. That's why when people go into hospital with very high blood, you don't try to, because if you drop it too suddenly, they can have something like a stroke or heart attack, because all of a sudden your organs that are accustomed to seeing this high pressure, now all of a sudden you drop the pressure, and then that can be deleterious. So I would not say it is normal to be walking around with like a 180 or 90 is the example I'm using, but it may just be a situation where you have been running higher pressures and it just needs to be treated.
Okay, so we are coming down to the final question or questions now. How can you know or detect that you probably are having issues with your kidneys? How do you know that you have kidney problems? How can you detect that one?
Okay, so you may have kidney problems. Well, it can stem from different ways. So if you're known to have diabetes and it's uncontrolled, that can actually damage your kidneys. If you're known to have high blood pressure and it's uncontrolled, it can damage the kidneys as well. But if you're looking for specific symptoms or something to state that you may be having a kidney issue, you can have like non-specific symptoms such as being a bit nauseous. You can have symptoms in which you may have a headache or whatnot. One of the more symptoms that you have to be that may be more specific to actual kidney issues is that you can actually have swelling. So that you can have a lot of fluid building up in your lower limbs, which you would normally call as pedal edema. So like when you actually press in from your ankle going up to your knee, you can actually see the imprint of your finger in your lower limbs. And then also you can have chest pain, which can result from when there can be a buildup of fluid around the muscle in the heart.
And as a lay person or lay people, what can we, besides going to the doctor just off the bat if we suspect it, what kind of lifestyle would tend to stop us from getting such symptoms? And as a matter of fact, from having our kidneys beginning to back up on us, so to speak, what can we do?
Yep. Excuse me. I am thinking because Rachel was talking about the cause. In a lot of the patients that you see with kidney problems, a lot of them are diabetics or hypertensive or both. Sometimes they have both. And with uncontrolled high blood sugars and uncontrolled blood pressures, that is what puts the strain on the kidneys. And so being in control of your blood pressure or your blood sugar, that is one big step that needs to be done. You know, taking care of your body in terms of your conditions, the conditions that you may have. That's one.
So I'm thinking then what you're suggesting is that if we have lifestyles that make sure we don't get diabetes, that we make sure that we eat properly so we don't stress ourselves out and so on and get high blood pressure, that all of those things put together will help us to stay clear, hopefully, of kidney diseases.
Yes, yes, a healthy lifestyle, basically, a healthy lifestyle, proper diet, exercise, getting your sunlight, getting your rest, and so on. Those things are very important in preventing kidney problems and the problems that cause kidney disease.
And we're down to our last questions. And this is hopefully easy ones. What should one do to alleviate a persistent headache? Someone can take that one. And what can we do to alleviate a persistent backache? Someone else can take that one on backache. And what can we do to alleviate numbness and needles in our hands and so on? And and when we look at all of those, how do we know that we've gone past the point where we can treat it ourselves and we need to take medical attention from the doctor? So who's going to go for the persistent headache?
Okay, so with the persistent headache, what you can do is that you can try to avoid light. You can try to see if there may have been something you may have been eating that could have triggered the headache. What you can do is that you can try to drink water and to see if that helps. If with this headache, then you may have vomiting, you may have neck stiffness, you just don't feel well, you don't stay at home and try to say, oh, this is just, I sleep bad or something, that let me just relax my neck, let me just move it from side to side. You go straight for medical attention because that can be something of a more infectious region going on.
Okay, wonderful. So what about the backache? I know there are many things that can give you backache, but the question says, how should I alleviate a backache? Or backache, persistent backache.
Okay, so the thing with a backache, you can do the hot and the warm and the cold compressions. You can do those compressions to the back. You can do muscle rubs or whatnot. With a backache, you have to be cautious because you have to ensure that there is no trauma, that there could be no possible fracture to the back, and that's why you may be having a constant backache. Or also, if you have other conditions, such as if you could have been diagnosed with a cancer or whatnot, you have to ensure that they may not be a spread to the bones, and that could be causing the backache.
So you're saying, okay, first of all, rule out injury, physical injury.
Rule out physical injury first.
And once you have ruled that out, then we can go to the compressed, the cold and hot and so on.
Yeah,
and
home.
the massages will help as well? Professional
muscle rub.
massages? Yes,
I
that.
didn't say professional, but if you
Oh,
want.
so you get someone else in the house to give you the massage. I got that one, yes. Okay, about the numbness and
Before you
needles
go
in-
on, Brother Richard, I think too it's important to know. Some people may know the cause of their backache, and you just, something that they may have to live with. But it's important if you don't know, especially with the headaches, as Rachel said, it's important to know what is causing it. I think that's the point that we want to take away here. You need to know what is causing it. Yes, you can have things that you can do at home to remedy the backache, but it's important. As you say, if you rule out injury, then what's the next step? What else could be causing this? Yeah.
That's very, very important. So you must try to pinpoint, as far as you can, the reason for the backache, so to speak. Now, I know we are out of time, but before we get into the very last minute, needles and the numbness and needles in your hands and so on and so forth, I've heard you speak about this hot and cold compress. The different things we have. But I remember growing up, things would have changed because they used to tell us that you shouldn't have, what used to say? You shouldn't have saying hot, 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 and then put something cold, cold, cold. That it would not
Warm, not hot.
Oh, warm. Okay. Well, that clears it up. They used to tell us if you put like something very hot in a glass container, and then you put something very cold in it, that it would break and so on. So, and they used to take that over and try to apply it to human beings that as if it would break the same way. Not that we would break, but it would not be good for us. Okay, so the thing about numbness now, numbness and needles in your hands. First of all, what causes that numbness and needles in your hands? I'm not sure if the person is talking about, something you sit down for a long time in one position and then you find that you can't move your leg. Is that what we were talking about here? Going to sleep, a limb going to sleep or whatever. And then there's one where you get up and you can't put your foot down because it feels as if it's full of needles or pins or whatever. And you're there, like that all the time. I'm not sure.
So I would say so I just want to go back 2 seconds. So just like what Rachel was saying about the persistent headache, like she pointed out, you could have something infectious like a meningitis or something like that you don't want to stay home with. Yeah. The other thing that you have to think about when you have a persistent headache could be whether or not you have something in like a brain tumor or something that is increasing the pressure in the brain. And like she said, things like vomiting, neck stiffness, those things associated with it. Well, if it's meningitis, you'll be talking about fever as well. But those, in addition to the headache, if you start having, for example, vomiting, blurred vision, those are signs that is not something to stay at home with, period. For the backache, what I would say is backache, I think, is probably the commonest things that people probably, whether go to the doctor for or complain. Almost everybody will tell you they have backache, and it is, as you said, so many different causes. Some women will even have backache. For example, when they have their periods, they have backache. So the variety of reasons why people may have backache may be, it's a very long list. But persistent backache, one of the commonest causes, I would say, is as people are getting older, people talk about degenerative changes, meaning everything getting older, everything wearing out. So meaning for lack of a better way to say it, so meaning people say arthritis in the back. That is something that is a very common thing. Some people may have prolapse, collapse, all of those things. So what I would say, one of the things about the backache, if you start having, for example, like pain or numbness or anything going down the legs, anytime you have tingling, numbness, that suggests nerve injury or nerve damage or impingement of a nerve. And that is something that, it's not that it's something that may necessarily need a surgical intervention, but it may just need physiotherapy, some exercises. So when you start having back pain and you're realizing that you're getting pain going down the leg or what people call sciatica, all of those different things, then you may need, whether it be physiotherapy, as you said, the massages, all of those things may also help with that. But back pain is definitely one of the more common complaints that I suppose people go to the doctor for. The last question you asked about the numbness and tingling in the hands. Now again, numbness and tingling, think nerves, think a nerve issue. So it can go from something as much as something like, if you're B12 deficient, you can have that numbness and tingling in the hands and the feet. Diabetics oftentimes will complain too. Sometimes they get what we call a neuropathy, just means that the nerves are affected. So they may have, again, it may be in the feet, it may be in the hands. When people start to complain of like a numbness or pain going down the hands and numbness going down the hands, then you have to think that the nerves in your neck are being compressed, and they may notice, they may tell you if they turn their head a certain way or if they lift their hand above a certain height, they get those symptoms. So that essentially is a situation where we may have arthritis in the neck, and it may be something that may just need, again, it may be something that needs physiotherapy, they may need something as severe as needing surgery. So if you're having persistent numbness, tingling, running down your hands and feet, or if you're talking hands specifically, it may be something related to the neck. And again, it could be from trauma, it could be from, like we say, arthritis or degenerative changes in the neck. So that is something, again, to keep an eye on. What I would say, things you could do at home, make sure that you have good support for your head or your neck. For example, when you're lying down, when you're watching TV, those sort of things, make sure you get adequate support, a proper pillow, proper mattress. Those sorts of things will help both the back as well as the neck. Some people may find generally just some painkillers may help. But one of the things that people will also say is that anything, you know, they say use it or lose it. So anything that, as much as you may be having pain, sometimes if you try to do nothing or you are a lot more physically inactive, it can actually worsen. So not to say if you're in severe pain, you're going to get up and try to go outside and go in the garden or whatever, but just be aware that sometimes, you know, you can't, I don't want to say give in to the pain, but you still need to try to keep as physically active as you can. Because as you say, as we all get older, we all will have aches and pains, but trying to keep mobile and trying to keep active is probably one of the best things we could do. Other than that, I would say the other important thing that I think a lot of us do not pay attention to is our footwear. And sometimes the shoes we wear, they may look great, we may have heels that are, they may look great, but it's not good. It can cause a lot of back pain, etc. as well. So the footwear we wear, you need to wear shoes that are supportive, support your arch, etc. Those things can also contribute to sometimes the back pain and so on that we are having. So sometimes you have to sacrifice fashion for practicality and comfort.
Thank you very much. I remember going on a walk one day, and I had a pain on my legs. And you know, the thing would be to if you're having pain now, maybe you should stop. But it didn't stop. I've completed the walk, and by the end of the walk, it was gone. So I can concur what you say. Okay, well, we've come to the end. I want to thank Sister Shireen Greaves, Dr. Rachel Greaves, and Dr. Tamara Greaves. We had a wonderful evening session. I know we spent a bit more time than we probably thought we would have, but I know it was very informative, and we can now leave here equipped to deal with a whole set of issues with confidence. So once again, I want to say thank you so very much. And now I give you back to Sister Ameda, or Sister Loline.
I have one announcement to make from the Health Ministries. On the 23rd of October, we have an exercise program here at 6 o'clock. Our closing hymn is number 78. panelists and the moderator for such a wonderful, wonderful health program. And we thank God for the Sabbath. We close the Sabbath. And now we ask God that as we're about to go to our various places, that you will take us home safely. And all of those who have not yet envisioned and doing the health practice, it's time to get on board. So now may the God take us home safely and have a good night. These in mercy we ask. In Jesus' with thanksgiving. Amen. Have a good night, everyone. See you on the 23rd of October at 6 a.m.